Thank you for joining SABIFF.TV for our special May Mental Health Showcase. May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and I'm so grateful for SABIFF for allowing us to show these awesome films. Mental health awareness and mental health challenges are very prevalent in our community, and I'm grateful that they gave us the platform to discuss some of these issues that are coming up with these awesome filmmakers. Hi, my name is Mia Morris, and we have just watched Normalize. And now we have a special guest. The producer, Mr. CJ Penny, is with
Yes.
us. How are
Yes.
you doing, sir?
I'm doing well, Mia. How are you today?
I'm doing very well.
Good.
So, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, about your background, and what led you to start the Normalize podcast?
How much time do I have?
Uh,
I'll try to give short, brief answers. Thank you for having me. My name is CJ Penny. I'm the executive producer of Normalize, the film, which was inspired by Normalize the podcast. So Normalize podcast is an actual podcast that exists in the space of this world. It started about 7 years ago, maybe, when I was having issues in life. To be honest, I was having a lot of alcohol issues, a lot of drug issues, just marital issues, children issues, being a parent. I was just having a lot of issues in life, and it kind of culminated in a night where I was drinking heavily. I was driving on the Baltimore Beltway. I'm from Baltimore, and I got in an accident on the Baltimore Beltway, driving about 90 miles an hour in a blackout, for 4 hour blackout, and I hit somebody. Um, and gratefully, thankfully, I didn't injure him. I didn't injure myself. But part of my consequences from that action was to get therapy, to get help, to get treatment for my issues. And from that treatment, I discovered a lot about myself. One, I discovered I was kind of knew it, but I kind of had to accept it that I was an alcoholic. The second was that I was bipolar. And that was something that I had no idea about. And to be very honest, I didn't treat it seriously probably for a couple of years even after that. So he said, you have a drinking problem. Do you accept that? Probably I didn't. But I said, okay, what do I do? And he's like, you need to like occupy your time, occupy your space. And so he suggested I start a podcast. So I started a podcast. And I really wanted to be different with podcasts because I feel when I started doing research on what podcasts were, I felt like for Black men in particular, we talk about like a lot of the same things. We talk about sports, we talk about music, we talk about pop culture, but we don't talk about ourselves. We don't talk about why we are where we are, what makes us scared, what makes us happy, what makes us feel. So I wanted to be different. So I started the podcast about more about my emotions. Um, and from that podcast, it became popular. And I got a call from somebody who said you could take your podcast and you could turn it into something visual. So I said, let's make a film. So it was hard. It was really hard, but we realized like telling this story of mental health for Black men is not an easy story because nobody really talks about it. So after a couple of renditions of a story, we found the right story and we created a film. And that was like that's what we did. But it's crazy because that's one side of my life. I'm a professional. I'm a working professional. I'm an executive at I would say transit property in Chicago, and I manage billions of dollars in over capital budget. So I have like this life that I do that helps finance what I do, but it's it was basically me trying to say this is the life of a Black man who is struggling with a lot of issues, plus is bipolar, and still trying to make himself successful. So that's what the story is about.
okay.
If
Yeah.
that was a lot.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's a lot, but thank you so much for being vulnerable and for sharing your story because, as you stated, mental health, especially mental health among Black men, is something that is
Yeah,
not discussed, but
yeah,
there is a high prevalence of it.
yeah.
And yes, so why was it important for you to tell that part of your story? Because I know you said you went through the different challenges and things, but why was it important for you to talk about the depression?
Well, it wasn't necessarily the depression. It was more just I felt like just Black men aren't talked about in the right way. I
Okay.
feel like we're always articulated like rappers or I don't know athletes or
Hmm.
in the game drug dealing whatever it is. Like, what about like just the regular dude who's working 9 to 5 to protect for his family, provide for his family? You
Right.
know, who struggles with his. So I'm light skinned, sometimes racial identity. You know what I mean? Sometimes like just masculinity in a hyper masculinity world. I grew up in the '90s, like
Hmm.
so like there's that like, but I'm from the suburbs, so there's like a lot of different complexities that are going on. You know what I mean? Like there's a
Hmm.
lot going on with black men. There's a lot of drama. There's a lot of baggage we carry, and we don't talk to each other. And we don't. I don't even know how to like talk to other black men, and I hate it. We can't even communicate with each other the way we want to. So it was more about just telling the story of what a average black male is going through. The black male, like
Okay.
almost like the silent majority that you don't
Right.
hear, you know.
Exactly.
And I'm not what you see on TV. But I am what all my friends are. You know,
Yes. So what did it mean for you to be diagnosed with bipolar? So when you first heard that,
I didn't know. I didn't care. It's like whatever. Like because honestly,
hmm
that's what it found. That's what it sounded like. I was like, what do you make an excuse for me? Like I
hmm
can't make excuses. I can't.
okay,
Whatever is wrong with me in life, I have to figure that out. And so, at first, I didn't treat it seriously. I did, and it took years for me to really understand what was going on with me, to really understand my moods, how I impact other people, um, my highs, my lows, my depression,
hmm
which can
yes,
last for weeks on end, my mania, which can last for weeks on end. So it took a while, not weeks on end for mania, but it took a while for me to really appreciate what was going on with me. And I saw that it was just somebody just trying to diagnose me like something was wrong with me.
hmm
But it took me a while to respect and accept the fact that yeah, there actually is something going on with me. Um, and I have to respect it. Like if I have any other disease, if I have cancer,
yes,
if I have something else, I have to respect that. I can't just act like it's not there. And so it took me a while. And so at first I didn't care. And I feel like that was a short sighted that was a shortcoming on my part. It took me a while to really respect the dangers of what I have and the beauty of what I have. I have a special power. I mean, I'm very creative. So I
hmm
can and I can create a movie. I can get endless hours of sleep, or
yes,
not go without sleep.
yeah, hmm
And I live in Maryland and work in Chicago, so I travel Monday through Thursday to Chicago just for my job, and I still come
hmm
home for my family. Like I have different types of energy that people don't understand, but it's about controlling that energy and producing it for something good. And right now, I just want black men to understand you're not alone. That's like my mission right now.
yeah,
It's just I'm here. We're here.
yeah. And I think that reaction is very typical, especially in communities of color. There's a stigma that's attached to bipolar and depression. A lot of times you'll hear people in our community, if you, they'll tell you that they make you feel like you're ashamed, like there's something wrong with you. And so we
Yeah,
carry that with us. So we get
yeah.
that
It's stigma.
diagnosis. hmm
Hmm.
And the stigma is like, okay, well, there's nothing wrong with me. I just need to kind of
Man
brush it
up.
off. And, yeah, yeah,
Man
man.
up. That's yeah, man up.
Exactly, man.
Yeah, man up.
And but bipolar depression is actually the sixth leading cause of disability in the United States, just among people in general. And
Hmm.
Black people actually they have it at the same rate as other communities, but we
Hmm.
tend not to address it because of the stigma.
Hmm.
Bipolar has, like you said, so many different components to it. There's the mania, where you just have
Hmm.
all the energy and you just go, 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 and then the depression,
Yeah.
and the little episodes that just kind of come and go. And
Hmm.
you seem to be doing a great job of managing that. And that's kind of one of the things we have to learn is how to manage it. And
And
so,
and I wish I was better. It's not easy. I struggle. I have my ups and downs. I did. Um, I've gotten so well. I've gotten so good at it. But it doesn't mean that I'm doing everything right. And there's a lot of coaching that I still need. You know, I guess what I'm trying to do here is just to tell people I'm very successful. I'm very successful.
mhm,
So it's one of those things like telling people you can still be normal, whatever that means.
yes,
Um, you can still like it's not a life sentence. It's not a death sentence. It's just
right,
something you have to like learn to cope with and deal with. But you can flourish. You can be great. You really can.
Yeah.
And I would argue that I am with what I do in my career and everything else, that I've accomplished a lot, and I have to realize that. But I do struggle. I still struggle.
Yes.
So
And
these conversations are helpful.
yeah. Well, and you mentioned earlier you called it a disease, and that's what people don't. They don't often see mental health as a disease, but that's exactly
Hmm.
what it is. And so, whether you're treating it with medication or whether you're treating it with therapy, it's important to maintain those things so you manage that just like you manage anything else that may be going on in your life.
And I'll be honest, my family won't like when I say this, but it's in my family. It's deep in my dad's side. It's deep.
Okay.
My cousins, we grew up not close to each other, but we're all like, you know what I mean? And like,
Hmm.
we all suffer from different isms, alcoholism, addiction, or, whatever it may be. Like, we all struggle from it. And it's crazy how it really, this type of, it may not be bipolar per se, but mental health.
Yes.
Um, and it's in us. And for Black people, we carry a lot.
Yeah.
I don't think we fully appreciate or respect the gravity of what's happened to us and what's in our DNA, because our
Yes.
parents and our grandparents and what they had to go through, how much it's in us, and we don't know how to articulate. We're scared to talk about it because we haven't been able to. If you express your emotions, if you express your feelings, you're seen as weak. Um,
Hmm.
and but you're Black, you can't be weak. You're not given that choice in life. You don't get that privilege. You got
Right.
to survive like every day.
Hmm.
It's
Yeah.
and so I'm just saying I'll show myself and we can all talk about it, and it is what it is. It's being
Okay.
vulnerable is very empowering.
Yes, it is.
It's very empowering.
Yes. Yes. Say that. Say that again. Say that one more time.
Being vulnerable is empowering. You know
It's
why?
very.
Because you
Yeah.
can't say anything to me that's going to hurt me. I've already
Yes.
put it out there, and all I've done is said I'm just like you. I've just said it, and that's the only difference. And so it's very empowering. Um, So it's something that I wish I try to get others like in my family and stuff like that to like embrace it. But it's a process, and I get why we
Yes.
don't do it. I understand that too.
Well, it's scary. It's very scary to be vulnerable like that.
It is.
And but if we as a community, as we are getting better at having these kind of conversations, hopefully we'll be able to continue to grow and deal with some of that stigma and some of that trauma. Now, when you reflect back as a child, were there any signs or anything, any triggers that you didn't pick up on or were maybe ignored by your family and friends related to uh,
No,
the depression?
it's wild because
Okay.
first I guess like bipolar that really doesn't come on until like more in your adult years, but
Yes.
there's other
Hmm.
issues that occur in your life that can cause problems. I grew up in a chaotic environment. My mom did everything she could for me. My mom is a beautiful person. She did everything possible. When I produced this film, she was scared to watch it because she thought it'd be a reflection of her. And I'm like, Mom,
Okay.
your son made a film. Like, if it's a reflection of you, it's a reflection of your greatness. Um, but no, I mean, I grew up like unfortunately, a lot of Black men. I grew up without a father.
Hmm.
I grew up with my boys. I grew up, people hate saying this, on hip hop music.
Yeah.
And I grew up in a world, those were my role models. Biggie was my role model. You know what I mean? And like,
Yeah.
that's what I knew. And like, I didn't know how to respect a woman or respect other people. Like, that wasn't taught. You know what I mean? My mom was working three to four jobs just to make ends meet. And it was just
Right.
me learning from my boys. And so it's not like, it was just like, it's the tragedy of a Black male.
Right.
Um, and it's ubiquitous, unfortunately. It's the
Yeah.
norm.
Yeah.
So there wasn't necessarily a trigger. It's just how it was. Um,
Okay.
but it grew into my chaos, my chaotic life, not having stability, not just knowing like where a meal was coming from, where my clothes were coming from.
Hmm.
It led me to like lash out in other ways and try to calm stuff down. So I did have a racing brain. My thoughts were
Hmm.
always moving. So it caused me to drink. It caused me to gravitate more towards women, something that
Hmm.
could just like release all this stuff that was in my head that I didn't know what was going on. Um, and so stability it's one of those things we don't think about. I'm a parent now of two kids, and like trying to give my daughters a consistent pattern every day in life. They wake up.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? We get their hair
Yeah.
done. We get
Yes.
breakfast. we go to school. They do their sports and then they come home and like they do their homework. Like it's repetitive, it's consistent, it's always the same thing. That's something that I
Right.
didn't have. And that consistency is what kids need. And
Yes.
so I didn't realize what was going on at the time with me.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's needed because often when children don't have that, they go into that fight or
It's like,
flight response.
yeah,
Yeah, and
absolutely. Yeah.
they're always living their life in a reactionary way. And
Yes. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
exactly what it is.
yeah, because it's always about survival. It's always
It
about
is. It
survival.
was super
Yeah,
survival
yeah,
getting to that moment. And
yeah,
that's what it was. And so, and and for people listening, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just how do you understand what you're going through and try to like push pause and understand what you need to be doing
yeah,
to change that pattern. Because again, it's something that you're kind of like born into it. Like
yeah,
no
yeah,
fault of yours. That's all you know. That's how you're conditioned. So it's a challenge.
So yes. So how were you able to function in the midst of your bipolar depression, as everything was kind of coming to a crescendo? How were you able to
Mhm.
function in your key roles as a father, as a professional, before you knew about the diagnosis? What were some of the
I
coping
wasn't. I
skills you
wasn't
used?
functioning. It's probably
Yeah.
what was happening.
Okay.
I mean, I went out as you see in the film. I went out. I was using drugs. I was women, like everything else. I wasn't functioning.
Okay.
I wasn't. Um, so how do you function afterwards? Um, it's still a challenge. You still your life, your marriage has challenges. Being a parent has challenges. It's literally taking one day at a time. Like for
Hmm.
me, sometimes the most important thing they say, be where your feet are. Some people call it 10 toes, something like that, 10 toes down. Like
Okay.
just knowing, stopping, saying,
Hmm.
I'm in this moment right now. This is my moment. Breathing, focusing on just my breath, my life, being grateful for that moment because I do realize it's gone. Just like that, it's gone. You know?
Hmm.
Um, so I had the problem. I think the problem with most people is, or what happens with us is we get forced into this situation. We don't see it. We're not proactive about it. We don't see it at the front end. I had to be in a car
Okay.
accident where I almost killed somebody, almost killed myself to have it
Okay.
happen, you know? And it wasn't
Yeah.
something that I saw on my own. And so when people hear me talk, I hope they can see it in themselves or they see it in somebody they know and just get other people just to talk about what they're feeling and maybe try to identify what's going on and try to figure out a solution, a resolution. Because it is a lifelong journey. It's not. It's
It
not
is.
just like take a pill,
Yeah.
you're done.
Yeah. Don't go away.
I'm not deep with this.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Don't go away.
I'm pickled, as they say. I've been pickled,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
there's no coming back.
Yeah.
So it's yeah.
Yeah, I was speaking with someone earlier, and I did mention we were talking about depression and people who live with it. And
Mhm.
one of the things that people who've been diagnosed with depression are really good at is wearing a mask and
Yeah.
being being who
Yeah.
you want them to be, and they
Mhm.
can turn it on and off like a light. So
Mhm.
and they wear a mask, and then they tend to pick up the isms, as you call the alcoholism,
Mhm. Mhm.
um, being promiscuous, those type of things, and all
Mhm.
those things become coping skills until
Mhm.
you kind of hit that one bump that kind of wakes you up. So would you say that DWI was your wake up call,
Yeah, but it's
or your
still.
accident was
I
your
mean,
wake
even
up?
in the film, if you've seen the film, it doesn't just stop. Just because
Yeah,
you hit your bottom doesn't mean your bottom is your bottom. There's
yeah,
always a new bottom. You know what I mean? And
yeah.
yeah, like one of the things, like one of the personality traits is, yeah, I never felt comfortable in my skin. I'm always a people pleaser, and it
Okay,
may go back functionally because my father wasn't there. Like
okay,
really, as a man, suffering from that issue, like not having that black male figure to kind of help guide me. So I find myself always like reaching for a black male figure, almost like a savior. Does that make sense?
okay.
Like, you know what I mean? That's
It
never
does.
there.
It does. It makes
And I
perfect
put
sense.
these
Yeah,
unrealistic expectations on people that they can't deliver because it wasn't ever fair for me to put that expectation on them. But like having a mask, doing what because like somebody left me who was supposed to be there, it's like I have to please everybody because I don't want you to leave me.
yeah,
I want to
hmm,
make you feel like I'm worthy. You
yes,
know,
Yeah, and
Um,
that's kind of what is at the core, of course, of people pleasing. Is you want to feel
mhm.
worthy. You want to feel like you
Validated.
matter. Yeah.
Hmm. So it's um it's a challenge, and again, I'm trying to be as like open as possible, so when people hear this, they can relate to it. Like if there's
Okay.
something that like I get that was me. It's like you're not alone. Of course, yeah. There's a reason why it's you. you know,
Yes.
but not having that
Mhm.
consistent male figure for me was a problem. I think for men need men. Like we don't like to admit it, but we need that.
Mhm.
And we need not just men. We need men to say I love you, to care, to be like we
Yes.
can be tough as we want. That's not a problem. That's in our DNA. We can always
Mhm.
be tough, but can we be
Right.
compassionate to each other? Can we show love to each other?
Yeah.
That's
Empathy.
yeah, the
Yeah.
empathy. That's the big thing. Can we do that? Like that's the big thing that we need.
Okay. Because you mentioned reaching for that black male figure, but you
Mm-hmm.
yourself are a professional
Mm-hmm.
in an immense leadership role.
Mm-hmm.
So
I
does that give you a level of
Yeah,
validation?
yeah. I love it. I love it. I love
Yeah.
when people see me for the first time. They're like, because my name doesn't sound black, so to speak. Sounds very white. Charles Wesley Payne the Fourth.
Yeah. Okay.
So that first time they see me in the interview, they're like, oh, you know what I mean? Or like, to be honest, like when I'm interviewing
Yeah.
people, I love interviewing brothers, like young black men, because they come on
Hmm.
and I'm an executive. So they're like, we want you to meet the
Okay.
executive. So they turn with COVID, they turn the screen on. And
Hmm.
their eyes light up. Like that's you. I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I'm you. You know what I mean? I love
Yes.
it. There's nothing better than helping a black man out. Like in my life, like it's so rewarding. It's so amazing. And to come from not much, from nothing really, to be able to do that is just an amazing experience. It's everything that life is.
Okay. So are you, if I can get a little personal, I know
Yes.
therapy, yeah, therapy is ongoing. And
Okay.
so
It's
what would
therapy
you
is
say?
life, and therapy should be for everybody, no matter what. We all need to
No,
talk.
yes.
We don't need help. We just need to talk.
Yes.
It's not even like getting help. It's just talking. Just we all need to
Yes.
talk. We all need to express ourselves. It's no matter where
Exactly.
you are. So there's nothing wrong with it at all. Everybody should, it should be mandatory for everybody.
I think it should be mandatory too, of course. But
I mean, it really should. It's
I
just like
honestly, yeah, yeah.
it should be mandatory. Yeah. But I'm sorry, I cut you off.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
Okay.
So, what would you say to someone who said, "Well, I don't need. I have my girlfriends. I can talk to my girlfriend, so I don't need to go to therapy, or I can talk to my sister, so I don't need to go to therapy." What would
You
you say to
don't
that
need
person?
people to. I want to be frank here. You don't need people to co-sign. Like I don't co-sign bullshit.
Okay,
You know what I mean? Like, pardon my mouth. Like, I'm going
that's
to be
fine.
honest with you. And the therapist needs to be, you need somebody who's going to be honest with you. And you don't need to be in your bubble of reinforcement. And that's what our society suffers from now. Everybody just goes to what they want to hear. You know what I mean? They don't want to go to what they don't want to hear. And
Right.
sometimes therapy can be a place where, if you're honest, it's only as good as the work that you put in.
Right.
Like, you can lie your whole time in therapy. It's pointless,
Hmm.
right? So you have
Right.
to be honest. You have to be willing to, like, say, I don't want to change. But you have to be willing to listen to something that you don't want
Yes.
to hear. And quite honestly, when you're around people that love you, they want to make you happy. So they
Hmm.
may not tell you what you need. Um,
Right.
so getting that unbiased opinion is good, but it's important to have somebody who understands you. Like
Hmm.
I, for the longest time, therapy was hard for me until I found like a black man who really understood me. Like he just got
Yeah.
me, and he got me to open up. And like that's what I needed.
Yes.
Um, so you have to find the right therapist. Not every like you can go through it. Just like if you knock on a door 100 times asking for $1, you may never get that dollar. It's like that 101st time. Like with therapy, you have to find the
Right.
right person. But there is a right person for you.
Yeah. Yeah. And recently, I would say there's been a boom of African American therapists and counselors in recent
Mhm.
years.
Good.
So
That's
definitely,
great.
I encourage people also to find that right person.
Yeah.
And
And if you're black, it
and
does mean something to find somebody who looks like you. There's nothing wrong with saying that. I've been through a lot.
yeah.
But the people who can
Yeah.
empathize with me, it's not that they're reinforcing me, but at least they understand what I'm saying. And it helps.
Yes. Hmm.
So it's important.
Okay. Now, yeah. Now, for those people who are given a second chance at life, what do you suggest they do
Mhm.
to make the necessary changes, especially when they're dealing with challenges that you've dealt with, such as alcoholism and the bipolar disorder?
Mhm. Um, you gotta love yourself. You have to learn to love yourself. If you can't do that, then we can't do this.
Opening up and being vulnerable can be pretty difficult. Problem is, we don't allow ourselves to see what's under the mask.
Loving yourself is one of the hardest things to do. Like really loving yourself and taking time for yourself and saying, I matter, doing things that are important to you. And it's not about being selfish because people are like, oh, you're being selfish, you only care about yourself. No, it's like, I can't care for you if I can't care for myself.
Right.
So I mean, you got to be able to like care for yourself, which is again something that I still struggle with. These like this is why this is a good conversation because it reminds me of what is still important. You know what I mean? Because you get caught up in this grunt work and you forget about having to do the same steps every day to make sure that you're in the right place. So you got to love yourself. You got to give yourself a chance. You got to show yourself some grace. That's the
Yes.
big thing that I've learned this year. People tell me all the time because I'm successful, but it's never enough for me. And that's part of my Bible. I'm never satisfied, never.
Okay.
So I can win awards, which I have, and like all this other stuff. And people are like, oh, you're great, you're great, you're great. And I'm never happy with myself. I'm never happy. I'm like, it still doesn't matter. None of this matters. But they're like, show yourself some grace, and like showing yourself just that you're God's child. And I'm not religious, but you are a child of something greater than you. Like showing yourself some grace, loving yourself. And I think if you're able to accomplish those two things, you're able to then receive information. And you have to be able to receive information from others to help you get to what you need to do.
Yes.
You can't, none of us can do it on our own. We all try to, and we all fail.
Yes.
Like
Yes,
we,
we have.
we
Yes, we
need
have.
each other.
Yeah.
We always fail.
So, yeah, self-love, self-compassion, and it's very important. And it's encouraged all the time. I work with children. We encourage them to do it as well. But it's also lacking with a lot of people. So how do you begin to love yourself and be intentional and consistent about it?
I don't know if I know the answer to that. That's a hard thing to do. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? To really love yourself, like
Well, I think what you said a few minutes ago is definitely a good starting point. Is the grace, giving yourself some grace.
yeah, I mean,
Being,
yeah, right. But I mean, like
yeah,
to genuinely just like because I do good job. I mean, you know what I mean? Like I'm just trying to be
yeah,
honest
yeah,
about this conversation. Like that's the hard part. Is like,
yeah.
and I don't know when you're 43 like me.
Mhm.
Like, is it something that like I try to instill in my kids? You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like now, because I don't think it was really instilled in me. Because I don't know if it was really instilled in my mom. You know what I mean? So because she had such a tough life, and my grandfather had even a worse life. And the further back you go when you're black, it's even
Mhm.
worse. You know, like we've
Right.
never been taught to do it. We don't know how to model it to each other. Like you know what I mean? And so like trying to model it to so I don't know if I'm good at doing it for myself. I know when I
Mhm.
see it. I know when my kids when I model it to my children. And I guess that's all that
Mhm.
matters right now. It's like, you know what I mean? Making sure that they don't suffer from the same things that I suffered from because it wasn't shown to me, it wasn't taught to me. Because I still get in my head. I still, like I said, I still struggle. The medicine is one thing, and the talking and all this other stuff, but it's you
It's
still
a
you live
it's a
with it.
yeah. It's a process. It's a journey.
Yeah,
Just like you
it
said.
is.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
is. It is. And so I don't. So yeah, I'm better now than I was 5 years ago. But I don't want to give the impression that it's not hard. It's not work. It's
Right.
it's constant. Yeah, it's a just anything important in life. It's constant. You have
Yes.
to work on
Yes.
it. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, but I agree. Doing the grace, I think expectations, and not only expectations other people put on us, but the expectations we put on ourselves. I
Yeah.
think we
Yeah.
have to be careful about that as well. So, what do you want men specifically to walk away from after seeing Normalize?
I want men, black men in particular, to know that you're not alone. The thoughts in your head are normal. Um, there's nothing wrong with you. Just talk, express yourself. Don't be scared to be vulnerable. Again, I can be as tough as I want. You know,
Hmm.
we can all be Ukrainians. You know what I mean? Like we can be as tough as we need to be. We
Yeah.
can. That's not a problem for me.
Hmm.
But can I be compassionate? Can I be empathetic? Can I be caring? can I speak to another black man and not like want to hate him? Because I hate
Yeah.
myself, all this other stuff, so it's just more like, just, you're not alone. Talk, contact me. How many people I've talked to who've reached out to me, like
Right.
saying thank you because I feel the same way. I'm like, it's okay.
Yes.
If I see him, I can give him a hug and we can
Hmm.
talk. We can chop it up. Like, it's okay. We can get through this. Like, it's not a death sentence, but we have to at least acknowledge what's going on with us. We gotta stop what we're doing. We gotta stop what we're doing. We're killing ourselves. Like,
Yes. Yes,
it
we are.
has to stop.
Okay. So, what are your plans for Normalize from here? Is there a
Yeah.
film in the works?
So yeah, there's more. So we got the podcast, and so it started with the podcast, and it became a film, and now we're doing a drama, a network drama.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, and that's the best thing about it, because you don't see a drama about black male mental health from a
Yeah.
person who, maybe I'll tease it a little, maybe a professional who's an executive of a company, you know what I mean, who is living a good life, but still struggles with, issues with his marriage, issues with his children, issues with alcoholism, issues with race, identity, like all these other issues, but like, it's just a regular life of being black. And it's not from being a victim, because I'm not a victim.
Right.
I'm not a victim, but I want to say there's a lot of people out there like me, and our
Hmm.
stories aren't told. And
Right.
I refuse to not let that story be told. God gave me a chance to be, a person who can articulate well, who's blessed with the ability to make money. So I want to tell that
Hmm.
story. I'm not gonna coon us out. I want to do the right thing for us. So
And we definitely appreciate that. Very appreciative. So, where can we find the podcast?
So you can go to normalizeproductions.com, and that's where you find the podcast. The podcast, I can still go back and listen to my podcast and be like, this is pretty dope, because it's different. It's all story based. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I can listen to my own podcast and be like, it's pretty dope. I use music. It's always story based. I guarantee if you listen to the first episode, especially if you're like a college educated black man, you'd be like, yeah, I get that. You know what I mean? Like, the first episode is
Yeah.
called "You Sound White." Like it's
Oh,
just, you know what I mean? Like, it's just about what the experiences are. That's not been trivialized by media, just about what we know to be true. So you can go to normalizeproductions.com. You can find the film, the
okay.
short film, which is winning awards, which is great. We just won DC International Film Festival. Came second in, God, I don't even know what it is now. Festival in LA. I'm not going to promote myself, but no, we're getting recognition, going to Dubai, Ottawa. Like, it's being like international now, so it's dope. So you can find the film, and then yeah, the show. That's like my next big thing, is like, I have my professional life, and my dream is to like bring our story to like everybody.
Okay. Congratulations on all that, and thank you so much for joining
Thank
us.
you.
I know
Thank
you
you
have
so
a
much.
really busy schedule.
Nah, thank you for being patient with me. I'm sorry.
Okay. Please make sure that you are exercising self care and taking care of yourself. And join us each month at SABIFF.tv for a film and post discussion. And make sure you follow us for updates on our fourth year festival, which will be October 6th through the 9th, 2022.